You have to build trust with the team. And to do that, you have to be transparent, you have to communicate, you have to develop a common vision.
Welcome to Rise and Stride, where we empower you to take your next step in an ever-changing business landscape. Here's your host, Denise LeDuc-Fremming, President and CEO of the California Society of CPAs.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rise and Stride. With me today is Mike Willis of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, where he is the Associate Director in the Division of Economic and Risk Analysis, overseeing the Office of Data Science and Innovation. Mike also serves as Chair of the Regulatory Oversight Committee, which promotes improving the quality of data used in financial reporting, improving the ability to monitor financial risk, and lowering regulatory reporting costs. Prior to joining the SEC, Mike was a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers for more than 30 years and also served on the XBRL International, XBRL US, and Financial Executives International. An impressive background and experience, Mike. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Denise, thanks a lot for having me. And of course, let me just get my SEC disclaimer out of the way. The SEC disclaims responsibility for any private publication or statement of any SEC employee or commissioner. So my comments today express my views and do not necessarily reflect those of the commission, the commissioners, or other members of the staff. So there you go. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you so much. And you are at the intersection in the heart of so many critical areas. I mean, data analytics, big data, data science, standardization. There's just all of that you are right there, kind of opining on all of that. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and to learn from you and to also help provide insights to our viewers today. So our audience, actually. So thank you again. So maybe we'll just jump into the first question here. And you're definitely no stranger to the CPA profession, having been an audit partner at PwC for more than 30 years. So first question that we ask all CPAs, or at least I do, is first, what made you want to enter the profession? And then secondly, more recently, why did you transition to the SEC?
Well, thank you. I guess in college, I was interested in entrepreneurs and business innovations, and accounting as a language of business offered a method of learning about a broad range of businesses while also engaging with the entrepreneurs. So I sought that out as a path to actual business ownership. Early on, I worked with high growth businesses, so the learning curve was always vertical. In the 90s, I transferred out to Silicon Valley, and by the way, I became a member of the California CPA.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, and there I worked with software and VC clients, and that really opened up my mind as to what was possible with software and also the potential for the internet. I do remember that at that point in time, everything was not on the internet, and Bill Gates came out with a book called Business at the Speed of Thought, and that really documented their migration towards the internet. I guess in that experience, I realized that a software-enabled business model that wasn't tied to hours and efforts could be used to enable more efficient and effective business and accounting processes. And that led me to think about software development efforts and an opportunity within the firm to build an entirely new business around that idea of software development. And so that's what I did. I began to develop software applications for the firm. And it also became very clear that the internet would become the largest commercial platform around, and the dependence of the internet upon international standards. And so those converging activities led me very early on to engagement with the XBRL founder and the other small group of folks. We collaborated with Microsoft, we being PwC, collaborated with Microsoft and NASDAQ to develop an early pilot of XBRL that clearly demonstrated what was possible. And we published in 2002 a companion article called The Road to Better Business Information, Making a Case for XBRL. And I used that article and also the demo to pitch the SEC as a method of enhancing access and the analysis of business disclosures. And I guess many years later, that led to my current position where I'm at today, was really the SEC adopting these standards.
Interesting journey. And you again were at the heart of everything that was happening with the internet and the disclosures and and right there. And we talk a lot to our students about the entrepreneurship and the opportunities to have so many possibilities within the profession, just working with clients from all different industries and sectors. And it sounds like you took advantage of that as you moved up the ranks and furthered your journey.
I did, Denise. And I guess as a sidebar, one of the software developments was electronic work papers called Teammate. It's a product that's still around today. We sold it to a commercial venture, but nonetheless, going from paper to electronic work papers, that was a big transition. And a lot of folks were like wondering, what the heck are we doing? So in all of these activities, there was a lot of crossing the chasm moments that were also very interesting in terms of educating and getting people to understand what was possible.
Mm-hmm. It's always such a leap. And then when you get there, you're thinking, oh, I should have done that years ago, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, it takes a leap of faith sometimes, for sure. So another question I have for you is, the SEC's Office of Data Science and Innovation was only formed a couple years ago. I think it was, you joined in November of 2020, I believe.
That's when the office got spun up. Yes.
Yeah. And so just talk to us a bit about the office's mission and why the SEC believed this was so needed.
Well, I think in broad terms, the group was created to facilitate a digital transition, going from electronic paper to really, machine readable data and disclosures, so that could be processed in a much more effective and efficient and complete and timely way. Now, in the context of the office, there's a bunch of things that this group looks at. And let me just give you like the big buckets. One is data science. That's, artificial intelligence and machine learning across a broad range of analytical areas, from financial statement disclosures to compliance risk disclosures to transactional disclosures to tip informations and many others. So we're using that machine to actually help us be smarter and more efficient. Second area is data engineering. This is basically the ingestion and data quality services for all commission data. This team is currently working on transitioning all of our data into a cloud platform. Third is the data sets. So we publish public data sets that are freely available. That includes things like financial statements, Form D, Form 13F, Reg A, crowdfunding, and a bunch more. The thing I would point out is that those data sets are among the most heavily downloaded assets on the entire SEC website. So I'm really, really excited about the use of that by the market participants. Next would be just taxonomies for machine readable disclosures. We develop and maintain those. Our team works very closely with the rulemaking teams and also the EDGAR team. To have those taxonomies means that we're getting a bunch of data that's machine readable. And so, of course, this group creates a bunch of analytical tools to facilitate the analysis of that. And those tools enable mouse click access to data and analytical outcomes by CPAs, attorneys, and other reviewers who are not data scientists. So we make it kind of really easy to do the work. Another major area is identity management. We're mapping the different identifiers like the tickers, the CIKs, the LEIs, the FIGIs, the CRDs, the ISINs, the QSIPs, the BICs, all these. We're trying to map those into a way so it can be very seamless when people are trying to combine different data sets. And a couple more rulemaking. We engage with all the rulemaking teams to ensure that the structuring of the information is economically sound and efficient for what the market participants need to do. We monitor a bunch of standards efforts like XBRL, like the LEI and many others. And then we collaborate across all the commission offices and divisions to help them manage their data and to analyze it in the most cost-effective and efficient way possible. So as I said at the beginning, long answer, but in general, we're trying to facilitate the transition from electronic paper to digital data and the related analytical functions at the commission.
And you said something in there, the data quality, so important. I mean, we always hear garbage in, I remember that from long ago, garbage in, garbage out, but also the ease of pulling the data. I think that's key, because there can be, you can have so much data out there, but unless you can pull it to help you make better decisions, it really isn't valuable. And I think when I talk to a lot of people, that's really one impediment that professionals see, is that they can't really get the data that they need in a format that is consumable.
Yep. I think with our current inline XBRL viewer that's in EDGAR, like where you're looking at a financial statement with, our internal version of that, with a mouse click, you can identify the disclosures that are in the report, but you can also identify the disclosures that are absent from the report.
Oh, that's key.
Think about that for a minute. That's very, very, very powerful.
That is very powerful. I have to, yes, think about that for a while. Is that for sure? That is. And so my next question to you is, the profession is changing with all this data, and we're seeing we have the CPA evolution. We know that data analytics, data science is so important as far as the competencies that a CPA needs going forward. So what can CPAs expect as we move forward into the future, and how do you think they should best prepare themselves to do that? Because they're all sitting there, hearing from data scientists and knowing this is all out there, but
Yep.
how can they be best prepared to really use this data?
Well, I think in general terms, the standardization implications across the board offer insights in terms of how CPA should be using the standardizations at the foundation of the accounting profession. So if we look at standardization, there are some things that accountants can actually use to make their jobs easier. And I think the first one is volume. When you standardize the supply chain, you're going to get significantly more volume of information coming through that supply chain. And so increasing their capabilities to handle, meaning to access, to load, to analyze, to visualize, increasing volumes of data. And I would highlight this both numeric data and narrative data. And so that requires them to leverage the available tools and information standardization that would be key to that effort. The second one is like the idea of data quality and validation. So that's not something you should do when you get the data. So what we do is these data standards that we're using enable us to publish and the market to publish and make freely available data quality standards and data validation standards that are freely available in the marketplace. And so that means that the market participants can apply these before they ever submit the reports to anybody else. So daily, quality is job one. We'll do it up front. You don't do it at the end of the supply chain. And so that would be something to think about from an accounting perspective, is building the data quality into the processes, not waiting till you've already finished the report. In doing that, there are some data standards that can be used inside the enterprise. There are some articles out there that use the AICPA audit data standards. And I think those can be used inside the enterprise to make enterprise data more accessible, more transparent, et cetera. The article that comes to mind is something called Driving Faster Decisions, which was written by the Hewlett-Packard right there in California, Hewlett-Packard internal audit team on their implementation of the AICP audit data standards. So another area would be around artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I would say using those processes to interrogate various information streams, that it seems like an obvious area for growth to me, helping the CPAs to shift through the noise of increasing volumes and zero in on the information relevant to their specific process. Now, we find that AI and ML highly useful in performing comparative analysis of sentiment and tonality with the related numeric results. So if the sentiment is going like this, in an upward slope, but the results are going down, that's a red flag for risk. Another area would be digital assurance. So this is the emperor has no clothes on, but electronic documents today are simply not under the scope of assurance and auditing. And so we need to move beyond the current audit document is only paper to a regime that enables assurance of disclosures with highly structured digital reports. And using those digital identities required by zero trust implementations to both sign and encrypt the reports so that users and investors can authenticate and reuse that information with confidence and not have to worry about it being, adjusted by some intermediary or third party. Another area would be cybersecurity. I mean, for those firms with existing cyber practices, you can envision assessments of zero trust implementations and the processes of control surrounding the management of those digital identities, their policy engines, and all those kind of things. But I think that's a compliance activity that's really tuned up for the cyber-centric CPA. And just put a bucket on the rest of them. My time in Silicon Valley really influenced how important it is to look over the horizon and develop insights on what's coming towards us. So I would really encourage CPAs to read as much as possible about future trends in their areas of professional interest and how the technology might be adjusting those going forward.
There's a lot out there. I mean, I find
Absolutely.
it all fascinating. And when you talk about some of this, it reminds me of the blockchain, right? Because that has that encrypted, it's secure, it's bite-sized, different ledgers. So this
Yep.
reminds me somewhat of that when I hear you talking. And I know too, when I was listening to some of your videos, you talked a lot about the notes, right, of the financial statements as well, some of that, the taxonomy. And that's where you find, what did you say? You said that's where the devil is in the detail or something like
The
that.
devil's in the details, always the case.
Yeah, always the case. And that's the one part of the the financial report, the audit report I like the most are the notes. Because to me, it tells me everything. So,
Yep.
yeah. So there is a lot that the CPAs can lean into as they go forward, but being curious, it sounds like is most important, that they're looking ahead to where really the profession is going in the marketplace.
That's right. And Denise, the idea of standardization of a supply chain, I think, what we're talking about with the SEC is like what happens with the compliance and reporting to investors. But that's almost at the very end of the supply chain. That's why I mentioned the data standards. Internal auditors, management accountants, they can all use these standards within their own systems to enable them to pull data from disparate systems that may not all, the data may not be in the central database. So they can use it to actually access their own systems a lot more efficiently. And that's what's in that article I mentioned earlier, Driving Faster Decisions from the Journal of Accountancy.
Great. I'm going to encourage everyone to download that. I'm going to do that after this call and read it. One other question, you had talked about XBRL International, and that's another organization that you're the founder of, I believe, and deeply involved in that organization. So my question to you would be, tell us about what went into launching that effort and what do you see today as some of those trends, or where are you headed?
Certainly. Well, I was the founding chair. The guy who came up with the idea was actually a sole practitioner up in Washington by the name of Charlie Hoffman. But the AICPA published a pamphlet called the Story of Our New Language. It's on their website. And that describes the personalities and cultures and politics that combine to create that common global language for business. And I will tell you, that was a real honor to participate in that collaborative effort with people from all over the world. Really a great activity, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And I still do. That's a great community. But from a personal perspective, what went into that was a couple of things. Number one was a very diverse team, incredibly diverse team, from all over the world, but there were CPAs, engineers, marketing, communications, lawyers, developers from countries all over the world. And many of them are still very much engaged, while other of them have moved on to other areas that some are aligned with standardization and others are just completely different career paths. To give you one example, one of the very early participants was actually a guy who went to USC right there in California. He worked at KPMG in Los Angeles, and today he is a Bollywood star in India, a legitimate movie star in India. And that gives you, an idea of how diverse the community was, but also how creative the thinking was at the time. So the first was a diverse team. Second was collaboration on the standard and competition on implementation. So we have direct competitors that are collaborating, and that's how we thought about it. Collaborate on the standards, compete on implementation. The second thing is consensus. So getting consensus. And so the governance of the nonprofit provided for a supermajority vote. That's what the bylaws say. But as chair, I asked for, and I got agreement to have a single veto vote. And that sounds nuts. But what I was after is I wanted to ensure that anyone who had a different idea was empowered to express it and get the attention of the community. Well, at the same time, they had to explain why their idea and how their idea was beneficial to the overall effort. And for me at the time, this enabled some very useful educational moments where individuals with outlier ideas, they expressed them in a very useful manner that actually contributed greatly to the standards effort. So consensus is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then with any market activity, persistence and commitment. So these individuals were engaged at a personal and professional level. They could see the need to migrate the profession more fully onto the internet, and they viewed XBRL as a standardized language that the profession would own and use to enhance the stature of CPAs and chartered accountants all over the world by moving them onto the internet. That implies a global perspective, which is the next point. And that's really understanding that the internet is not jurisdictional, it's global. And so we need international standards. And we met with the W3C leadership, and we collaborated with them on our approach to standards. And then I think that the last item I'd mention is really the key thing was understanding the business problems. This is less obvious, but one of the really key things in global adoption was the deep understanding of the existing business problems we were trying to address. We're not just out there winging it. We actually understood what the issues were. So like, how do you define terms? How do you define narrative disclosures? What are the presentation considerations? Because they may be different in different reports. What are the relationships between a disclosure and other things, like how is it presented, or what's the codification relate to, either the FASB codification or the IFRS bound volume or the SEC regulations? How do you create those relationships? How do you do validation? So what are the formulas or rules that need to be embedded in these ideas? What about dimensional aspects? Like when you have revenue by country, revenue by product, revenue by business segment. Those are all dimensional, characteristics, and that leads into other things like languages. Let's use English. Well, that doesn't work every place. So there's something called a language label that allows you to publish something in English, but then also see it in a bunch of other languages. And frankly, that was really critical early on because the Korean Stock Exchange used that to convert Korean financial statements to 7 or 8 different languages. And when they did that, the percentage of international investment in those companies doubled in a month period. That was
they
a
could
huge,
understand.
huge validation of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I'll mention really is the ledger level. So this standard actually, not only for external reporting, but as I mentioned earlier, like the AICP audit data standards, they can be used at the ledger level and sub-ledger level to express information in a standardized way. So really treating it as a supply chain, but understanding some of the key problems that people were trying to address.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a lot there, and just from an approach standpoint, I think there's quite a few elements that we could all learn from. And you said a diverse team. I mean, that's so important when you're looking at something, because you need different perspectives. You said collaboration. I liked what you said about direct competition implementation, because
we competed on the implementation, but we collaborated on the standard.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's key for all of us, I think, when we think about anything, to look at that approach, and then just being empowered, persistent, and committed. Because it's so easy sometimes to just say, I can't do this. It's too big, and you have to break it down and just be persistent.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you had all the best elements to make it a success.
I think we had the best people. We had a great team and a very motivated team, and God bless them all. Everybody contributed their part. It was just a great thing.
Everything comes back to the people. Always.
Yes, it does.
That's the secret sauce for sure. For Cal CPA too. We have the best people and the best members too. Another question I had is, when it comes to the change and regulations, I'm sure you get plenty of feedback, like we all do. And so what has been some of the challenges in moving forward with some of these efforts where you said, I've gotten this feedback and I need to move in this direction, or just thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, I think as I think about change, the adoption of these standards that are freely available, there's really some common challenges that I try to think about. And the first one I start with is why. So understanding why the change is relevant. What specific problem do you think I have the solution will address? I remember actually when we were rolling out electronic work papers, and back before we kept all the papers in these big trunks, but we were rolling out electronic work papers. And one of the partners asked me, what problem do you think I have that this will help me to address? That's what he asked me. And when I was able to give him a half dozen example of his primary pain points, he went from being a skeptic to an advocate, almost like one of those friends you have that used to smoke but doesn't smoke anymore. So if you're a smoker and you're around them, it's kind of painful to watch, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So understanding why was really, I think, the key thing. And part of that is the second item, I guess, is what's in it for me. Ensuring that individuals understand the specific benefits are going to accrue to them. And in rulemaking, this what's in it for me is dimensionalized to capture both what it's in it for the market participants, along with what are the estimated costs. Now, when you're discussing internet standards, especially like XBRL or FixML or FPML or whatever, you're often well outside the comfort zone of many CPAs and attorneys. Just to give you an example, everyone has a kitchen sink, but very few people know about the plumbing that's underneath the sink that enables it to actually work. And data stands are a lot like plumbing. They provide common data plumbing infrastructure that are useful in streamlining business processes. And that's why industry groups come together and collaborate on their development and maintenance. But what I'm charged with is ensuring that the commission rulemaking staff are aware of such standards and what their relevance is to our rulemaking process. So the last thing I'll say about that is, once individuals understand what's in it for them, they commonly will act in their own self-interest. It may take them a little longer to get there, but eventually they'll always act in their own self-interest, and standards are designed to basically be beneficial to everybody participating in the supply chain.
Mhm.
And then
There's
the
a great
last thing-
lesson there in change management. A
Yes,
great
absolutely.
lesson. I mean, just what you said, the why, always start with that and what's in it for me. If you can get those two anchored, you'll be successful.
Yes. Denise, I guess the last item is just understanding. It's very hard for human beings to conceptualize something they've never seen before. So that's why we did that pilot back in the day, because it helped people conceptualize what we're talking about and what it would enable. So I think that's a key thing for anybody in this area, and it's very useful to help to build consensus, because then people can easily see what's possible. And I guess in summary on this, I think we're still in the very early days of digital transition at the commission. I think it's going to take some time. It's going to take some education. I think it's going to take some more examples. But I think at the end of the day, it will lead to a much more efficient, much more trusted, much more transparent marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Well, and trust, that's what we say is at the heart of all of it, right? And the protecting the public and that
Absolutely.
interest. Yeah, absolutely. One question I have left on leadership, because it's quite obvious that you are, quite a leader out there. Just what would be the two competencies that you think CPAs need as leaders going forward?
So Denise, on leadership, I guess the two things that I think about is trust. So you have to build trust with the team. And to do that, you have to be transparent, you have to communicate, you have to, develop a common vision, those types of things. But you're doing all those things just to build trust in the team and to get people to trust one another, and to function as a team and not rely upon, the leader telling them what to do. It's really trying to get out of their way and making sure that they have the resources they need to get their job done. I find that if I'm spending a lot of time on something and telling people what to do, I'm scratching my head and wondering where I messed up, because the people they're smarter than I am, and they know what they need to do. And if I'm in there micromanaging it, that means that's not a good thing. So I think building that trust and making sure that they understand that I trust them, they should trust me, and that, I'm going to try and help them be successful in their jobs and their roles and in their careers for that matter. It goes beyond what we're doing today. It's really kind of a longer term vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that first item is trust. And then I guess the second thing, I just want to I want to try and help people succeed. I think that kind of goes back to trust. I think about it, and I actually think about it, I call it dad management. My dad wants me to succeed. I want the people I'm working with to succeed. I want my kids to succeed. So that's the way I think about it. How can I help you succeed? And what is it you're trying to accomplish? So it's that kind of conversation that I really try to get into the folks I'm working with is, what are you trying to accomplish and how can I help you succeed at it? And that's, you can see how that would also build trust. But those two are the things that I think about, building the trust and then, trying to help people succeed in their careers long term.
That's great advice. I mean, what you said too about getting out of the way. Sometimes you'll have to let people fly. And I remember when I first was a manager, someone told me, always hire people that are smarter than you. You have to be confident enough to hire people that are smarter than you. That was the best advice that anyone gave me. So you had a lot of great nuggets here, Mike.
Well, thank you, Denise. I will tell you though, for me, hiring people that are smarter than me, that's very easy for me to do.
I don't think so. I think you're very humble, but
Well,
I'll
thank you
take
for
that.
Okay.
But it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Like I said, so much good information you shared with us. And maybe you can just, because I tried to look at my notes here, took a lot of notes, go back. What are those two articles that you are suggesting that individuals read?
So one was driving faster decisions. That's in the Journal of Accountancy. And then the other one is
Trying to look back.
the road to better business information, making a case for XBRL. That was another one. That was very early on.
Great. Well, that's our good two takeaways for our audience. And just like I said, so many great nuggets. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. And I'd like to have you back again someday. It would be great to talk to you.
Denise would love to do it. Enjoy talking with you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, Mike.
Rise and Stride is produced by the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. To learn more, visit calcpa.org.